Your dog's final moments with you always reveal a hidden emotional truth. Most people believe dogs simply fade away, unaware of what's happening, but neuroscience and behavioral observation suggest something far more emotionally complex is unfolding in those final shared moments together. At this stage, dogs are not just reacting to pain or instinct. They are actively reading human emotion with an intensity that often surpasses everyday interaction patterns. This is where science becomes unsettling, because studies in animal cognition reveal that dogs synchronize deeply with their owners' emotional states, especially under stress or transition. In those final moments, what you feel, they feel amplified, translated through a bond built over years of shared survival and affection. And while it may seem like silence or confusion from the outside, internally there is recognition, memory, and emotional continuity still active within them. Neuroscience has shown that dogs possess a specialized brain structure similar to humans' emotional processing regions, allowing them to interpret tone, expression, and presence in deeply intuitive ways. Research in canine behavior suggests that dogs rely heavily on olfactory and emotional cues, meaning they detect subtle chemical changes in stress, fear, and calmness. Evolutionarily, dogs have been shaped by thousands of years of close companionship with humans, refining their ability to read us as their primary social reference. In critical or emotional transition moments, neural studies suggest heightened sensitivity in dogs' limbic systems, which govern attachment and emotional memory. This means a dog does not experience separation or closeness as simple events, but as deeply layered emotional experiences tied to identity and safety. Even in final moments, their perception is not shutting down emotionally in the way humans often assume, but instead narrowing focus onto their strongest bond. A dog in its final phase may lie unusually close to you in their final phase, often still or quietly watching your face. It is frequently misinterpreted as weakness or physical decline alone. Most assume this closeness is simply discomfort or disorientation, a body seeking rest rather than meaningful connection with the person beside them. Biologically, this behavior reflects attachment activation, where the dog's nervous system seeks regulation through proximity to its most trusted emotional anchor. What appears as weakness is actually profound relational grounding, a final attempt to stay emotionally synchronized with the human they have always depended on. Dogs may suddenly follow you more closely than usual, even when movement is slow, repetitive, or seemingly unnecessary in their final days. People often interpret this as confusion or anxiety-driven behavior, assuming the dog has become disoriented or insecure due to age or weakening senses. However, canine cognition studies suggest this is a proximity-seeking mechanism, reinforcing emotional safety through constant visual and physical contact with their bonded human caregiver. Rather than aimless wandering, it often reflects a shift in bodily focus, where survival systems override comfort-based behaviors to maintain internal balance. A dog in its final moments may stare at you for extended periods without blinking or responding to external distractions. This is often mistaken for vacancy or loss of awareness, as if the dog is no longer cognitively present in the moment with you. Neurologically, this gaze is linked to emotional encoding, where the dog's brain is actively processing familiarity, identity, and emotional safety cues. It becomes a form of non-verbal communication, where presence itself replaces movement, and connection is maintained through sustained attention rather than action. Some dogs reduce eating or lose interest in food, even when it is offered with care and familiarity during their final days. Owners often interpret this as rejection or suffering alone, assuming the dog no longer finds comfort in basic routines they once enjoyed deeply. In reality, appetite suppression in animals is strongly linked to metabolic prioritization, where energy is redirected toward internal regulation and emotional equilibrium. Rather than detachment, it often reflects a shift in bodily focus, where survival systems override comfort-based behaviors to maintain internal balance. A dog may begin sleeping more deeply and for longer periods, sometimes appearing difficult to wake compared to earlier behavior. This is commonly seen as simple exhaustion or aging-related fatigue, without being considered deeper emotional or neurological significance involved by observers. Sleep cycles in dogs are regulated by neurochemical changes, near end-of-life phases. The body conserves energy while processing emotional memory consolidation. This increased rest is not disengagement from life, but an inward shift toward preservation, reflection, and reduced external responsiveness of the nervous system. You may notice your dog seeks touch or remains physically pressed against you more than usual during their final stage of life. This is sometimes viewed as dependency or confusion, suggesting the dog is afraid or unable to function independently any longer. Touch in mammals is a primary emotional regulator, and in dogs it activates oxytocin pathways associated with trust and bonding reinforcement. This behavior reflects an instinctive return to secure attachment, where physical proximity becomes a source of emotional stability and reassurance. A dog may become unusually calm, even in situations where they previously showed excitement or anxiety during their final phase of life. People often misread this as improvement or recovery, assuming the dog is getting better or less affected by illness or aging. However, research indicates that emotional withdrawal can occur as neurological systems conserve energy and reduce external reactivity to prioritize internal regulation. This calmness is not absence of feeling, but a shift into deeper internal processing, where attachment remains strong but outward expression diminishes. Some dogs appear to seek specific people in the household more than others, focusing attention on one familiar presence during their final moments of life. This is often interpreted as favoritism or learned behavior, suggesting the dog simply prefers one caregiver over others without deeper emotional meaning. Neuroscience of attachment shows that animals form hierarchical emotional maps, prioritizing individuals who represent safety, consistency, and emotional regulation in their environment. In final stages, this focus intensifies because emotional memory becomes the dominant organizing system, guiding perception and comfort in the dog's experience. A dog may lick your hand or face more gently than before, with slower, more deliberate movements in their final moments. This is often seen as residual habit or reflexive behavior without emotional significance attached to it by owners observing them. Licking in dogs is strongly associated with social bonding and oxytocin release, functioning as a calming and affiliative communication mechanism. In this context, it represents an intentional emotional offering, a final expression of comfort, recognition, and trust toward their human companion. A dog may quietly sit or lie beside you, refusing to move even when prompted or gently encouraged in their final stage. This is commonly interpreted as stubbornness or fatigue, as if the dog is simply too weak to respond to external cues anymore. Behaviorally, this stillness reflects a conservation state, where energy is minimized and emotional focus is concentrated on proximity and familiarity. It is a profound expression of attachment, where simply being near their chosen human becomes the most meaningful action remaining. A dog may rest their head on your lap or feet for extended periods, holding contact without interruption during their final moments. This is often reduced to comfort-seeking behavior or simple physical relaxation due to weakness in aging, perception by human observers. In mammals, sustained physical contact triggers parasympathetic nervous system activation, reducing stress hormones and reinforcing emotional security bonds between bonded individuals. This final contact is not dependency, but a deeply rooted biological expression of trust, familiarity, and shared emotional history encoded over years. A dog may look back at you repeatedly when being moved, as if trying to maintain visual connection in their final moments. This is commonly viewed as confusion or anxiety about separation, interpreted as disorientation rather than communication, by many observers at the end of life. Eye contact in dogs is a powerful social bonding mechanism, and in final stages it becomes a tool for emotional anchoring and reassurance. It is their way of ensuring continuity of connection, reinforcing that their bond remains intact even as physical systems begin to decline. As these patterns come together, what emerges is not just biological shutdown, but an extraordinary persistence of emotional awareness rooted in lifelong companionship. Dogs in their final moments often appear more emotionally tuned to their human than at any other time in life. This is because emotional filtering narrows, leaving only the most significant relational signals active within their perception, according to behavioral science interpretations. The bond between dog and human becomes the central organizing structure of their emotional world, overriding distraction and external stimuli. In this state, affection is no longer expressed through activity, but through presence, stillness, and sustained attention as a final form of communication. Even as physical systems decline, emotional connectivity remains remarkably preserved, suggesting that attachment operates independently of bodily deterioration to a surprising degree. This challenges the assumption that awareness fades uniformly, instead revealing a layered emotional persistence that remains deeply relational until the very end. When you begin to see these behaviors not as decline, but as communication, your entire understanding of dogs shifts fundamentally. You stop interpreting actions in isolation and start recognizing a continuous emotional dialogue that has always been present between you and your dog. This reframes ownership into something more profound, where responsibility includes emotional awareness, not just physical care or routine maintenance of needs. It becomes a relationship defined not only by companionship, but by mutual emotional recognition, even in silence and transition phases of life. In the quiet space between life and memory, dogs seem to leave behind something more than absence, something emotionally lasting. They leave a lasting imprint of connection, one that continues to shape how we understand love, loyalty, and presence itself. And perhaps what we feel in those final moments is not loss alone, but recognition of a bond that transcends physical existence. If you've ever shared your life with a dog, you already carry that understanding, even if you've never put it into words. In those final moments, what stays behind is not silence, but emotional memory carried quietly inside the people they loved most. Perhaps what we truly mourn is realizing too late how deeply our dogs understood us without ever speaking a single word. If this changed the way you see your dog, hold them a little closer tonight, and never underestimate the love living quietly behind their eyes. And if your dog means more to you than words could ever explain, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who truly loves their dog, and leave a comment telling us your dog's name.